Hi Mom, I'm in North Korea.
Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and don't forget to follow on Instagram. There's no country on earth like the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, more popularly known as North Korea, or the DPRK. No matter how much you travel, you will never find anywhere even remotely close. Just a disclosure, this video will be a vlog detailing what I did while I was in DPRK. This is not political commentary and it's not an opinion piece. If you are interested in visiting, I will put together a second video detailing everything you need to know and my opinions and advice on the travel experience. DPRK is a very hard country to capture on camera, even though there's no shortage of grand monuments or picturesque scenery. But what makes the country so weird and so unique is a certain indescribable atmosphere. Everywhere you go, portraits of the great leaders are watching you, monuments and propaganda are omnipresent. But the truly unique thing, the truly bizarre thing, is that for the most part, it's a country like any other, with normal people doing normal things, such as going to work or school, buying ice cream, or going to a fun fair. Some of it might be staged for tourist benefit, but I highly doubt that all of it is. More of that in the next video. My trip to North Korea started on the national airline, Air Koryo, and I recommend you watch my review if you haven't already. The airline is a fabulous introduction to the most isolated country on the planet. Immediately after landing, my tour group met with our Korean guides and we ventured into Kim Il-sung Square, overlooking the tower of the Juche Idea. This was a fantastic experience, being able to walk around the square and watch students prepare highly choreographed routines for the first mass games in 5 years. Since you have to travel with Korean guides on a guided tour, I was surprised how much freedom of movement we did have. We were able to wander around, and if we wanted to go somewhere out of the line of sight of the guides, they were happy to escort us. It felt no more restrictive than a normal group tour. And within minutes, I really started to like Pyongyang. It felt spacious, clean, and, for want of a better word, relaxed. As the sun set on the first day, we ventured to the famous and rather excellent Yanggakdo Hotel. Most tourists will stay here as it's on a small island separated from the rest of Pyongyang and is a high quality hotel with great views from the revolving restaurant where I got my first taste of North Korean beer, which was delicious. The next day it was time to venture south to the city of Kaesong and the village of Pyongsong. I tried my hand at sweetmeat soup, better translated as dog soup. It wasn't half bad.
Have you had it before?
Not in Korea.
Not in Korea.
Just out of Kaesong, the DMZ along the border with South Korea is the place to be. Honestly, compared to the South Korean side, which I've also been to, the North was almost chilled out. And it was fantastic seeing things such as the room where the armistice agreement was signed and the giant flagpoles of both sides. The day after was the most intense day of the tour, the Kenmusan Palace of the Sun, where both the President Kim Il-sung and General Kim Jong-il lie in state. And yes, Kim Il-sung is still officially the eternal president, with Kim Jong-un technically third in command after his grandfather and father. The palace requires formal dress and good behavior, no leaning or crossing arms here. You also will have to bow a total of 7 times to the bodies of the leaders and their statues. This was the only site where our guides seemed genuinely stressed that we be on our good behavior, and it was also one of the most interesting sites of the tour. Afterwards, we visited the new military cemetery and got our first dose of North Korean rhetoric.
War, but we defeated the US, but we are going to smash the US imperialists if they invade our country again.
Now apparently anti-American rhetoric is at an all-time low since the Trump-Kim summit. It's no longer possible to buy anti-American propaganda, and the guides are no longer allowed to tell Trump jokes, though they do tell lots of other jokes. DPR Koreans universally love to laugh and are masters of sarcasm and lame dad jokes, a lethal combination. Still in our formal wear, me and a few others on the tour went back to the airport and boarded a Soviet Mil-7 helicopter for a sightseeing tour, which was probably the highlight of the whole trip for me. The helicopter was everything I wanted from a North Korean chopper. Just a sofa and some seats placed into the back cabin in a quasi-VIP layout, and a split system air conditioner that didn't really work bolted to the back.
Like army people.
You can take it in turns with these seats, by the way. I'm not going to hog this the entire.
No, you're not.
Lounge.
Honestly, it was like sitting in an oven. And trust me, you have not lived unless you've been caught in a thunderstorm in a beat-up old Soviet helicopter over Pyongyang. The weather and design of the helicopter windows meant it wasn't that great for sightseeing, but it was an experience, that's for sure. There are plenty of other spots in Pyongyang that is on the typical tourist itinerary. I really enjoyed the orchestra, which most people on the tour didn't go on, they all went to the circus instead. And as a fan of roller coasters and rides, I was excited for the Kaesong Fun Fair, and in particular, the flying roller coaster. The rides were all fun, though the roller coaster did leave me feeling like I'd been punched repeatedly in the face. The Fun Fair was one of those places that I feel might have been staged just a little bit. There was typically no queue for the rides, but as soon as a tourist queued, Korean queues started forming, and the Koreans who got on the rides with you, some of whom were uniformed soldiers, didn't give the impression that they were particularly enjoying their time. Though I'm really not sure, and it just added to the fun. The Children's Palace, where children are taught skills such as singing, dancing, and instruments, made me a little uncomfortable, but it was also incredibly interesting. Most of my tour group consisted of teachers, so they were all enthralled by the whole thing, but I am not entirely comfortable with children having to put on performances just for the benefit of tourists. There's a similar theme in the city of Pyongsong, where we visited a local primary school, and despite arriving at 6 p.m. on a Saturday in the middle of the summer school holidays, the children were all ready to give us some excellent performances. And also to effortlessly kick our butts at table tennis.
So I'm now in Pyongsong, which has a bit of a more rundown hotel than Pyongyang, but it's a walk-up, no elevators. And if you've never been to the Yanggakdo Hotel in Pyongyang, the elevators are notoriously slow. It would take half an hour to get down to breakfast every morning because I was staying on the top floor. So I'm pretty relieved I'm going to be able to sleep in a little bit extra and just walk down to the lobby when it's time to go.
As a bartender by trade, I was excited to hear that Pyongsong is also home to apparently North Korea's best bartender, who was a great guy and good fun, and him coupled with the intermittent power cuts, an awesome party was had.
Blackout party in Pyongsong.
I'm sure this video is getting long now, so I will try to power through, but there's still so much to cover. One of the most amazing things I've ever been part of is Victory Day, the day celebrating North Korea's triumph in the Korean War. I was not actually that well versed in the Korean War before visiting, but it was still absolutely fascinating to hear the North Korean side of things at places such as the War Museum, which conflict very much with the Western point of view. Victory Day lunch took place in the park, where we possibly got some very genuine interactions with some ordinary Korean people. For instance, we didn't have a bottle opener, so someone in the group tracked down a local in the park who was able to open our beers. I don't think this situation was engineered, but who knows.
And we got challenged by some Koreans to see who could scull the most, and I let Australia down pretty badly.
Then there was some totally spontaneous dancing that was absolutely not just for tourists. After lunch, we took a ride on the Pyongyang Metro with its grandiose stations buried deep underground, where again, possibly genuine interactions with locals were had. Then we took a ride on one of Pyongyang's trams, which was cool, but the tourists had a private tram to themselves, so there was no locals riding the tram with us. And finally, it was time for the biggest Victory Day celebrations, the mass dancing in Kim Il-sung Square, which was a true spectacle. Of course, my first priority was to go into the middle of the square and join in. DPRK is probably the last place in the world where this sort of thing happens, at least with any regularity, and it was quite a special feeling. Victory Day dinner consisted of Korean barbecue and more singing and dancing. Nighttime performances like these were not uncommon. And I started to quite like Korean food by the end of the tour, and I even finally got good at using chopsticks, which is something I've avoided for decades. After Victory Day, we did do a lot of sightseeing around the rest of the country, from the West Sea Barrage near the coastal city of Nampo to the spectacular Hall of Gifts given to the great leaders near Pyongsong in the country's mountains, and including a mountain hike to take in some nature. And the country isn't all Juche and Kim family either. A surprising amount of ancient history was covered, from seeing the tombs of the old king and queen and a visit to the Buddhist monastery. When it came to leave Pyongyang for the last time, I was both a little sad and at the same time very eager to get to a reliable internet connection. I boarded the train, and while most of the tour group was heading straight to China, I would have a couple of more days in Dongmin, a farming village which inexplicably has a 5-star hotel.
So this is my second to last day in DPRK in the small town of Dongmin. I cross the border to China and take the train up to Beijing tomorrow. I'll miss it here when I'm gone, I think. It was very hard to say goodbye to the guides. They've become very good friends. And this is a beautiful country, but I am also looking forward to having a phone signal and KFC.
And in Sunuju, the border city with China, where I was able to visit a cosmetics factory, an art gallery, and see another performance by kids at the local kindergarten, before eventually taking the bus across the bridge to Dandong in China. Visiting North Korea is a bit surreal for sure, but it's also very well worth it. You will form friendships with your guides, and they have the power to make your trip amazing and give you a real insight into day-to-day life. If you get on their bad side though, they have the power to make your trip awful, so don't do that. As a consequence of becoming friends, it is not the easiest to leave them when you don't really have a means of contacting them. Though you can stay in touch through the tour company.
Say hello to Australia. Hello, yeah. Hello to Australia. Hello. Mr. Lee, say hello to Australia. Hey, yeah. I will make you famous.
There's a lot to see in terms of sites, monuments, and history, but the real highlight of the trip is getting to know your guides, your bartenders, and the Korean people in general, who are also warm and hospitable and funny, and to see a very different side to a country than how it is portrayed in Western media. Anyways, I will have a video detailing the travel experience and what to expect in much more detail. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Thanks for watching this generic travel vlog. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Happy travels!